Welcome to building the premier accounting firm, having a successful accounting, bookkeeping, and tax business. This show is dedicated to helping accounting professionals actually confidently and competently offer quality accounting services to get paid what they're worth. Each of our episodes is designed to be conversational with tips and tricks to help you apply the principles of accounting and business in your own company and help your clients, offering them quality services such as the things that you would intend to see, traditional accounting services, but more consultative in nature as well. With these things in mind, I do want to point out that topics covered in this podcast happen to cover things such as marketing, lead generation, ideal clients, pricing, price strategies, accounting services, value-added services, workflow, practice management, staff training, client onboarding, client retention and relationship building, a multitude of things to service you and allow you to build the premier accounting firm. I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast and enjoy each of the episodes that we have. Today we have a special guest. It happens to be Clayton Oates, and I'm Roger Knecht. I've been working with accounting professionals now for more than 20 years, and as I've been helping them start and build their accounting businesses, I've found numerous opportunities to not only make friends and excellent acquaintances, but more importantly, help them achieve their goals as they've started and built their accounting companies, offering quality accounting services. Universal Accounting Center, of which I'm the president, happens to be an accounting school dedicated to helping accounting professionals get the training, resources, certifications, coaching, and support needed to offer their quality services and get paid what they're worth. I encourage you to visit Universal Accounting and find out more as to how they can help assist you in starting and building your accounting business. Now, today with Clayton, I'd like to actually introduce a little bit of who he is. He's been helping small businesses, accountants, bookkeepers, and technology companies to connect with each other and get the clients and customers they serve to actually have a better life. Clayton will actually inspire you in this conversation. He's an ex-accountant, living proof of how you can actually dramatically transform your life by helping others. He's passionate and engaging. He is a communicator who draws more than 25 years of experience in accounting technology. And during this time, Clayton has actually created an A team to really build his business. QA Business happens to be a company in which he's educated more than 20,000 small business owners and operators, accountants and bookkeepers, and consultants in utilizing technology to buy back precious time from their businesses. Clayton actually now devotes his time and energy to helping educate other advisors around the world on how they can become a difference maker for their clients. Clayton actually has a unique style of presenting, and you're going to love what he has to share. So Clayton, welcome to the show.
Oh, g'day, Roger. Thanks so much for having us on the call today, and g'day to everybody out there.
Thank you. So this is going to be kind of fun because you start by introducing yourself as being an ex-accountant. Tell me why you put the X on there.
Well, a bit of the backstory, I studied accounting, this is last century, in the 80s, and I went to university to do an accounting degree. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my future and with my life, but my mum suggested, hey, Clayton, you're good with maths. Why don't you look at doing accounting? And I suppose for me, the one thing I perhaps did know in my future that I really was hoping to achieve or bring to fruition was I wanted to have my own business one day. And I thought, well, if I learn accounting, at least it's that baseline understanding around finances. If I'm going to have a business, I need to understand the money and the accounting piece. And what happened was I then sort of just fell into accounting, really. I was offered a trainee accounting role at Pricewaterhouse, and fabulous place to start. But I didn't really have a fixed mindset that I wanted to be, remain as a chartered accountant or a partner at a chartered accounting firm. And so I felt as though I was sort of stuck for about 10 years. I wasn't getting to this point of realizing my dream of having my own business. And what I do realize now is that as an accounting partner or a firm, a business, you're a business owner. You're a part business owner of a business. It's an accounting business, not an accounting practice. So I suppose, just to fill in a bit of the backstory gaps here was that in the mid-90s, one of the amazing things that was happening in the accounting industry or accounting profession was that technology was starting to actually impact our lives. And we might think it's perhaps more recent than that, but this was more than 25 years ago that we could just see that technology was going to be such an important part of the accountant's day, of the actual interaction that they have with their clients. So that was sort of my ticket to sort of create my own business or have a piece of a business within the accounting firm. I moved to a regional firm, and we set up a software advisory division, or a technology advisory division of that accounting group, helping clients set up, train, install, support them in accounting technology, business software, and payroll. So I was then able to actually create QA Business as a joint venture with the accounting firm that I was a part of, to actually fill a need that was in the market, and continues to do so really over more than 25 years. So yeah, the ex-accountant bit is really in relation to tax accounting, and perhaps more the management accounting, those sorts of things, because I never got involved in audit, but I was in the tax area. So tax and I sort of as a profession or vocation decided to part ways around 25 years ago, even though, as a business owner, you're still connected to it.
I see. So let me back up, because I think you really touched on a number of things here that are very important. One, your mother didn't lead you astray. She obviously was directing you back in the early days as to what to pursue, and that was good counsel and advice to pursue accounting. I liked how you said that regardless of where you ended up in business, the principles were still going to be applicable, and you could use that skill set. But you went into the career, you got into it. But even before I go further, I want to mention, you said it in an interesting way. You said last century. Instantly, I felt dated. Last century, we did this. Well, I'm also from the last century, and I can admit that in the 80s and 90s, things did change, and there were significant evolutions to the accounting model. And as you reflect on those, you're right. Technology started to introduce itself in the 80s and 90s, and we saw, at least if you're old enough, people moving away from literal ledgers and journals, actual paper products, and sitting down and calculating these things in a very manual way, to the point that with the advent of software, we could, with now desktop computers, do what the big accounting firms were doing. And as accounting professionals, it afforded us the ability to really efficiently do the work, and now so do it in a profitable way. So now we could actually have multiple clients like the larger firms. And so really, accounting stayed the same. It was still debits and credits, but the whole industry was in flux at that point, because now the what's the word? I don't want to say average accountant, but the individual accountant could start a very successful accounting business. How about I say it that way?
Absolutely. And it was so interesting, reflecting on this, I suppose, perhaps in the last 5 to 10 years, with the whole surge and wave of cloud accounting. I can recall that these opportunities, I suppose, starting out in a big four, it was a big 8 back then, and it became big 6 and big 4 these days at PW. But one of the things that I vividly remember was there was a very strong focus on beyond accounting. And accounting was there to be done for sure, tax and compliance and audit and all those baseline things, which every customer or client would expect that if they're engaging a professional would have that baseline skill set. But it was more than that. And it's interesting, this conversation is sort of coming around again, really, around that notion of, and I'm not a huge fan of the term, it's like soft skills, relationship building skills, probably more so, connecting. How do we connect with the client? How do we create and keep and grow connections with our small business, our business clients, at an individual, but also a business and a holistic sort of level? So we were learning skills around having conversations with clients, actually communicating with clients. Dare I say it, marketing or sales was a part of that, because we want to actually attract a client and keep them through, as Drucker talks about, innovation and marketing, which is critical pieces of any business. So it's almost like, well, we're talking about this stuff as though it's new now, extending beyond compliance and beyond sort of the baseline of accounting. It's actually been there for probably forever. I just, if you talk to people maybe that are around 40, 50 years ago that are still engaged in the profession, and there's a few of those, that are saying, well, this is what we've always been trying to do. And there's been different tools and different waves of technologies or moments that happen when we can actually bring that skill set to the top. And now is particularly one of those.
Yeah, what you're describing with this evolution is, I think, very, very timely because there are people who get flustered by this change. And we're old enough to realize that this change, although different in stages, it's similar in the sense that it causes us to be actively engaged within our profession. So if we go back to the 80s and 90s, as you were describing, going from a paper system to now owning a computer and installing on it a software, and you saw this evolution of now starting to use software to run accounting, but then it evolved to where it was then online, as you were describing, the cloud. And that evolution was huge because now it was in a much more secure environment. It was being backed up regularly. We could access the information remotely. We could work off site. I mean, there were a lot of advantages that were starting to come, but there were still a lot of people that questioned the security of transferring the information back and forth. There were still those that held onto the old idea of going to the client, downloading the files, going back to the office, working on them, and going back and forth and uploading each. There's this evolution, and if you get old or stagnant and hold on to this old process, you're going to be left behind, because now what we've seen is accounting has evolved from being a record of the history of what's gone on via the transactions of the business to now it's real time with artificial intelligence, with all the things that are going on. The business owner isn't looking for you to close out last month and tell them what happened. They're looking for you to be able to provide tools, applications that let them see their accounting in real time, what's in the bank account, what's going on with receivables, what's going on with sales today. All of these things didn't exist 5 years ago. And now all of a sudden we're dealing with it to where we can now, as accounting professionals, do more real-time forecasts, and we can do cash flow planning. There's a lot of advantages here. And you brought up soft skills. That's where I think it really becomes interesting, because we're now becoming more intimately involved with the clients we serve because we're servicing them in a real-time status. What we have to share with them information-wise is relevant today. So I love how you're portraying all this. So let me ask, you start this business back in the 90s, QA business. What led you to want to start your own business? Why go out on your own?
Yeah, it's interesting. I sort of think back to my teenage years. I grew up on a farm, and it was a sheep and cattle farm. And what's the one thing you want to do when you grow up around a sheep farm? For me, get away from sheep. And I thought, well, counting is probably as far away as I can get. So looking back now, it was a fabulous upbringing. But at that time, it was like small country town out in the farmland. I wanted to break free and get to the big future. So that there was that piece, but also I actually one of our family friends used to travel a lot, and I was always curious. We used to go around to their house. They seemed to sort of have this lifestyle. It was like, wow, what do you do? And I didn't really know what he did, but I knew that he had a business. So it was almost anchored into my mind that business equals freedom. And how often we know that that's not the case. But I thought, okay, I want to have choices and freedom in my life. So I do need a business to actually be an enabler for that. And that was just my anchor, I suppose, or my vision around that, or my reference point. And as we know, the challenges of running a small business can do exactly the opposite for a lot of people, is actually take away their freedom. The very reason for starting actually becomes just this dissipated sort of vision that just that they don't seem to fulfill. So I sort of clearly thought, okay, business equals freedom, equals travel, equals whatever it is that I want to do and achieve in my future, and just stuck with that. Now, having said that, I felt trapped that I was in accounting for 10 years doing parts of accounting that I didn't enjoy. It was almost like this inertia. I had enough pain to be upset with it, but I didn't have enough pain to actually change. And I
Wow.
sort of had to get to this point where really just pure frustration. Okay, I'm going to leave the profession completely. I had a job offer from a client, and people on the call today, you probably, if you're doing a great job at whatever you're doing, highly likely you've had a client ask you, can you just come work for us? It might be an industry or another part of still doing accounting, but not in the accounting firm or in the accounting profession per se. So I had this sort of moment where, do I stay or do I commit? Do I leave or do I commit? And I actually did tender my resignation.
I thought you were going to say, do I stay or do I go now? But that's okay.
Great song. Should I stay or should I go? So it was sort of this catalyst that sort of forced my hand. And looking back, essentially what I think was the challenge, I was in this state of inertia, which was a frustrating place to be. And a lot of people are that right now with cloud technologies or actually looking to hold on to clients. We don't own a client base. We get the privilege to serve a client base. No one owns the client. It's a privilege whilst
Well
ever
said.
the client actually enables us to have that interaction. Or there's something that's off beam, or we decide that it's not a customer or client that we have alignment with. So it was great that in one respect I just got to the point where, okay, I've got to make a decision here. And that was, we had it's usually at the time in your life, isn't it, when everything else is going on. We had 4 children under the age of 5. We actually were living in a garage at the time. So it was all this sort of strange, sort of like, most people looking in would say, oh, why risk it? Why go do that? But I just had this innate desire, perhaps, dream, call it what you like, but it's an itch to be scratched. And thankfully, I got upset enough or frustrated enough to actually make a call to say, right, I'm going to build my own business here. I'm going to buddy up, and actually I buddied up and teamed up with the accounting firm. I think this was what was critical. I see a lot of people right at the moment, particularly perhaps 25-year-olds like I was back then, see the cloud in the last maybe 5 or so years and say, you know what, I'm frustrated here with the firm. I'm just going to leave and hang up my own shingle. Now, that's great. You can do that. But to me, it was like, well, hang on. I've built up 10 years of sort of relationship and connection with clients in the firm here and the partners and the rest of the team. Why don't we just create a separate division of the accounting firm that focuses on software advisory, accounting technology, training, education, and support? And so it made sense. It gave me leverage, gave me some security that there was existing clients there. And then we just created a joint venture together, which I thought was going to stay that way. But 4 years later, the accounting firm actually that I was a part of got acquired by a larger group. And this larger group actually happened to be a public company that was buying accounting firms, and it was a listed company on the stock exchange around Australia. And they bought 70 accounting firms pretty much within a year or two, and many of the greatest regional firms. And I thought, wonderful, we've proved that we've got a division of this firm. It's profitable. We're attracting new clients to the business. We're adding more value to existing clients. Why don't we do this in the 70 firms that you've just acquired? And to my dismay, they said, no, we don't think software and accounting technology is a thing. We're focused on financial advisory and wealth management. And I thought, oh no, how do I get out of here? There's no future. I'm going to be pegged in here. And luckily, one of the partners was a board member, and he helped me at a commercial arm's length to actually exit and take over full ownership of the business that I helped create 5 years earlier, which is QA Business. And so we've been independent ever since. The point I'm sort of bringing up here is that I felt as though I had a strong yearning to actually add value to clients for sure, but I wanted to also add value back to the profession. When I look back, although I had these really frustrating moments with the accounting profession where I didn't want to be in it, it had given me so much. And I understand this so much more now than I did 15, 20 years ago. So I felt at that time that I thought every small firm of maybe regional firms, certainly larger firms, would have the need to, and the clients would support the firm having an accounting technology division of that firm. And, in some respects, I was trying to sort of help with others create that 20 years ago. But looking back, the profession wasn't quite ready. And now it took sort of the cloud catalyst change really to perhaps be the trigger for that. So this wave now is happening where firms are saying, you know what, maybe I'm losing my relevance to my clients because I'm just focused on compliance. Now, don't get me wrong here. Compliance is not dead. Great people that do great tax and audit and those sorts of things are going to be needed, possibly even more now in the future, particularly with all this government funding that's going on at the moment. So, the thing was, what other need is there out there that as professionals, there's a fellow called Stephen Johnson that sort of got mentioned in a book called by Cal Newport called "Be So Good They Can't Ignore You." It's actually a Steve Martin quote, but the comedian. But Steve Johnson in this book is referenced by saying, what is your adjacent possible? This notion that there's something just over the horizon or just beside you that is a new future. It looks a bit fuzzy, but it's actually there. And if you're bold enough, brave enough, or there's a circumstance that requires you to step into that future, probably perfectly now where we've all been disrupted around the world and we've been forced to change due to the coronavirus, is that maybe this is the moment where you step into that future that actually is going to offer you a magnificent future now that you're actually forced to actually make that call and make that decision. And fortunately for me personally, and hopefully others that we've been able to help and continue to do so, accounting technology, in the 90s was that catalyst. And I'm forever thankful that I was, looking back, perhaps brave enough or just frustrated enough to step into it.
So with that kind of premise, let's jump ahead then to today. And as you're speaking to accounting firms, what would you say is the technology that is least used, but perhaps has the biggest benefit to the firm? What's a technology that they need to be aware of that they may not be noticing?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, when you look at the sort of the impact of technology, and there's so many on firms, right? There's sort of two parts to this.
Mm-hmm.
There's two tram lines, if you like. One is within the firm itself. There's a technology transformation that's actually occurring within firms, which actually it really started with the client. The software vendors around the world were particularly focused, perhaps more so, on working with, I'd like to perhaps put it that way, partnering with accountants to actually bring solutions to their small business customers and clients. And so we saw this sort of partnering in loose terms in some areas to actually work with or go through or partner with accountants to get to their end user customer, small business customers, and who are our clients. So that path, that wave sort of has been continuing since the 90s. It obviously was a huge uptick with cloud adoption since 2010 in our part of the world, and perhaps more so in the US and the UK in the last, let's say, 5 years, perhaps even the last 3 years, particularly in the US. It's become sort of crossed the chasm, if you like. So there's that piece. But then what was fairly late to happen was, what about the accounting firms, the accounting businesses themselves? I mean, they're a business, in many cases a small to medium-sized business in their own right. And in a lot of areas, it was neglected. But we're now starting to see that sort of, the practice management piece, and practice management is a big term like CRM almost. What does it mean? It means different things to different people. So that what I would be looking at is, well, what actually gives both our team and our clients, prospective and current, the best customer or client experience? And so that will be things around how do we onboard or engage our clients? How do we communicate with them? Do we force them to just do everything by email? Or do we actually operate in this sort of omni-channel way of actually sharing information? It could be text, it could be via social media, it could be via secure web portals, it could be what works best for them. So it's sort of this personalization that accountants, need to start thinking about and actually looking for tools and solutions that actually can enable them to do this. There's also that whole business model change around, this notion of sort of hourly billing to fixed pricing to actually the whole value pricing piece. And so value pricing your actual services is not new. The firm I was so lucky to work for, where we started QA Business, was doing this whole value pricing piece in the 90s. And, it's a fellow called Rick Payne and Paul Dunn. Rick was actually a partner of that firm in a small country town that I was lucky enough to work with. So, he was teaching accountants all around the world on how to actually do this, running boot camps for accountants on running accounting businesses, not accounting practices. So there's this sort of enhancing that customer client team experience. It's not just about the technology. It's not technology for technology's sake. We need to really carefully discern this. When we've done perhaps a lot more work initially over the last 20 years with small to medium-sized businesses. We're doing more with accounting firms these days, but we're actually SMBs. beyond accounting, beyond the accounting software and the compliance software, accounting and payroll particularly, what's their biggest need? Well, traditionally,
Well, let me jump in there. There are a few things I think that you've actually touched on that I think we need to really hone in on. First of all, you were speaking of technology helping inside the accounting firm, what the business is literally using to be more efficient or effective in the work that they're doing. And then the second that you alluded to was then the software, the technology that is available for the clients that you're working with to help them as well. So when you look at this, I think it's very important to delineate who's the benefactor of the technology. And when you're making decisions within the firm, you've got to identify, is this something that we're implementing to benefit the organization, the company, so that we can work more efficiently and more productively? Or is this something that we're implementing because we feel that the benefit will be to the client and the client's experience will be that much better? And as you go down and you identify what software, what technology you're going to use, if you have those 2 points of view, you can more clearly decide, okay, who's paying for this? Why are we implementing it? Why go through the hassle of actually adopting it? Now, with regards to internal software, there oftentimes are things that you can implement internally that the client needs to be involved in. And at face value, it appears that the client is benefiting. They're like, wow, this is good. I like how this is helping the business. But in reality, it's actually a flow-through mechanism to the accounting software that in the end actually is benefiting the firm to generate the reports and the information that the business ultimately needs as a client.
Absolutely.
So it may appear that it's for the client and they may be excited to roll it out, but in reality, what you've done is actually helped yourself internally. Yep. So I think those perspectives are very important, and you touched on those a little bit ago. The other thing, though, is with regards to the software, I think there are a lot of bells and whistles out there. When I attend accounting conferences and I go to the technology floor and I go to the vendor floor, there's lots of bells and whistles. It's one of those things where it's the proverbial squirrel kind of thing, squirrel, and you just got to get drawn to one thing. But I think if you use that assessment that I just shared of, is this something that I would use internally? Is it something that benefits my clients externally? It helps you kind of weed through whether or not you need to be enticed by this new bell or whistle. But it does mean that with technology, things are becoming more and more real time, and they're becoming more and more accessible. The business owner today can now on their phone have a dashboard, but you were speaking about listening to and paying attention to your client to know what medium they prefer the information to be presented to them in. Are they still old school where they want it on paper? Are they wanting it in a dashboard on their computer that when they log in every day or when they're sitting at their desk they can check on a dashboard? Or is it that they need it on their phone because as they're out and about they want to have access to the information? What technology best facilitates this? And I think those questions that you were posing earlier were spot on in that regard. So let's talk about the technology. Do you have any particular favorites that, I mean, I don't want to necessarily get into a sales presentation here, but the listeners, I'm sure, are wondering, this is kind of your forte. What advice, what insights would you say, hey, pay attention to this. You may want to check this out. Is there anything there that you would want to offer?
Yeah, well, at the risk of sort of favoring one of your children, I need to be conscious of that. But I suppose just before we go into some syntax or details there is, this whole one of these principles of accounting, I learned at university. I wasn't a great student, but it was about accounting information being timely and accurate. So the cloud equals timely, and is it accurate? So what processes and systems have we got around that? And just also on that, going to accounting tech conferences, as I've done over 20 years, we see a lot of that bunch ball activity, where people just bunch around, or it's bright, shiny objects. It's like there's not a lot of due diligence, sort of critical thinking that's actually occurring in some respects. People are going, well, what do you use? I'm going to use that. Part of this process actually is designing your own filter. And for us, when we started the QA business as a software advisory business, we had to I came up with a set of filtering criteria. And I wanted to, first of all, we needed to know who it is that we're serving. And so we knew that it was a small to medium-sized businesses in our regional area, but it probably will go beyond that. So I was then looking for solutions, and we're pretty broad. We weren't niching in particular industries or niching, as you guys say. So I had to then, the other thing that was critically important for us was we wanted to keep our independence. We wanted to actually ensure that we remained independent. Now, that doesn't mean not partnering. It means that you're partnering for the right reasons, and you're critically sort of evaluating that partnership constantly to ensure that you are remaining independent. I see a lot of firms and professionals just recommend a software solution because it, as you just said, it know who it benefits. They're putting or telling a client, you've got to use this product. And if the client asks the question, well, why? The truth, perhaps in some instances, is because it benefits our firm the most. And so we've got to be very, very careful around that because so we needed to know multiple solutions. It was an investment we were making. Now, not everyone is going to go this deep and broad. So we felt as though we needed 2 to 3 solutions. And I sort of had this philosophy that understand what you're trying to solve and who you're trying to serve. Also, be aware of perhaps 3 solutions. So if you think of cloud accounting, general accounting software for small businesses, understand perhaps 3 players in the market. Get to know, this is my 3-2-1 rule, get to know 2 of them, and things like, who are they? Do I know the management team, or do I know why they're actually created this business? Could I meet the founder? Not as easy to do these days as it was 20, 30 years ago. What's their philosophy? Do we have shared cultural values? Do I feel as though there's alignment and congruency? Because if we don't get that baseline right, no matter how good the technology is, eventually somewhere down the track, things are going to unravel, or we're going to have to compromise on something that should be a non-negotiable around our standards. And so then you'll likely master one. And so that's okay. You can be an advocate and an evangelist for one solution, but I would suggest you need to go through the 3-2-1 filter to get there in the first place, and then be prepared to sort of expand that filter back out again to sort of go back up to 2 and 3 if circumstances change down the track. So be very conscious that it's who you're serving. It may be the firm internally, but if it's a solution that you're going to talk to clients about, make sure you're totally focused on what is the best solution for them. You will have crossover situations where it'll just work very well for both. And that's okay, and that's ideal. We also see more of these vendors, particularly mainstream cloud accounting providers, and there's only several major providers out there that they're building out more end-to-end solutions. So they're building solutions that work for the small to medium-sized business, but they're also building internal practice tools that actually work for the advisor and the firm. Now, depending on the size of your firm, that may work really, really well. But again, you've got to be conscious of not just recommending a solution just because that's the one you've got to learn, about, just for that reason to benefit yourselves. So coming back more specifically to, solutions themselves, I mean, I was going to touch on before around this whole CRM piece. And again, that's a big, broad topic. But beyond accounting, and accountants traditionally tend to think, and I was in this camp, that accounting is the center of the universe. But if you talk to small businesses, usually it's their customer or their product or something that they're creating that's actually the center of the universe. Their promise to their customer base. Am I delivering on that promise? And so CRM actually is the glue that sort of holds that together if it's well implemented. So, and that could be around job management. You think in terms of firms around the whole workflow. I sort of look at when I look at this base or this explosion of apps. There's more than 1,000 applications now that sit around core accounting engines around the world, and a lot of them just are cross-border. They work here, they work in the US, they're global these days. So how can you chunk that down into categories that are relevant to your firm and the clients that you're looking to serve and attract? So you've sort of got these big, broad 6 categories. You've got the natural next step progression is around sort of document management. How am I actually managing documents? Can I see the actual underlying source document attached to the transaction within the accounting engine? So your cloud software, does that these days. What about, and that saves a lot of effort for the client, that paper trail. You start to move towards less paper offices. I don't know if paper less is ever going to be the thing, but less paper certainly is. And you could get to a point where literally there's, perhaps there is no paper in the office. you've got then, CRM, as I said, the focus on the customer or the internal teams of a firm. You've also got analytics, so presenting the data.
So just to be clear, you mentioned there's 6 things. So 6 being, the first being the document management, the fifth one being the CRM, the fourth one being the analytical software, the benchmarking and so forth.
Yeah. So these sort of have spokes coming off them too. CRM, you might think of email marketing campaigns. You like your MailChimps or your Survey Monkeys, or for interacting with clients. So they sort of fit within there as well.
Okay, so we've got the document management, the CRM, and then we've got the analytical software.
That's right.
What are the other 3?
Yeah, so you've then got sort of this whole chunk of payroll and HR. So beyond payroll, time tracking, just compliance around the employees and the teams. So I call it advanced HR. It's beyond payroll, but it's actually plugs into payroll.
Mm-hmm.
You've then got point of sale and e-commerce. It was traditionally point of sale, but think broader than that. It's e-commerce. It's actually interaction on the web with sales and transactions, and that customer experience on actually acquiring or onboarding a customer or selling a product or service. I think that's 5, and then the 6th one was sort of. I looked at it as sort of advanced inventory. So I'm trying to look at categories that are relevant to an accounting firm in their client base. And most of the small, the cloud accounting software products that are out there, the accounting software, are not strong on inventory or management of, it could be warehousing, wholesalers, distributors, moving product, physical product. And so you need to look at add-on solutions in many cases that bolt in and connect really well with the core accounting engine that solve that challenge. Because some of your larger clients, where there's a lot of latent demand and a lot of potential for you adding a lot of services to those clients, need this. They are in that wholesale distribution, light manufacturing perhaps. There's specific areas that they need to cover without perhaps going to a full-blown ERP solution, or suddenly where they're spending $100,000 and multiple tens of thousands a year on support and maintenance. So you can add a lot of value in that area by actually just bolting on a couple of solutions that actually fit and solve those areas. Now, I haven't gone into tin tacks around specific software vendors. Everyone knows who's out there in terms of large-scale vendors. But they'll change. So in order not to date this program, I think we need to just look at those categories. Again, go through your filtering, ask the key questions. One thing I will say is, if you're going to partner with a software vendor, ask them about their partnership model, their partnership program. Is it a referral model? Is it a partner model? What are the T's and C's, terms and conditions around that? Now, some firms may or may not be able to go that far. That's why we had a separate entity. We're a separate business to the firm, because we wanted to actually deeply partner with the software vendors, and that involved some money. It involved perhaps commissions. It involved margins and things like that, because we felt as though we also want to help them build a great business, because we want them to be around. The unknown at the moment, especially right now, is, I've recommended X or I recommended Y solution to my small business client. What if they don't exist in 2 to 3 years? What if it was the wrong recommendation? That is going to be inherently linked to me. And so there's a lot of fear around this as to, does that stop me from recommending? No, it should not. I think most people understand that there are going to be changes in circumstances beyond our control. But if you haven't done your due diligence, it may well be a problem for you, because you've just blindly recommended something off the back of someone saying, this is what you should go with.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing here are some very important things that are noteworthy. First of all, attending the conferences like we both have, I think it's important to stay up to date and really aware of what's new on the horizon as to the technologies, because there are new players every year. There are those that fade away. There are those that merge and so forth. So as you're becoming aware, this is where, as an accounting professional, you remain relevant, because as you're going to these conferences and you're looking at it through the lens of, of, are these softwares meant to help me in my business, or are they meant to help my clients as they're running their companies? And there is that pass-through benefit. But the analogy here is basically when we're trying to see, as we become in the accounting profession, perhaps a commoditized item, at least it sometimes feels that way, it's talked of that way, where we elevate and really offer true value and remain relevant as an accounting profession, is helping our clients, business owners, understand what softwares and technologies exist out there to help them run their businesses more efficiently, because we're the number people. We're more than just the financial people. We're more than just the balance sheet and profit and loss statement. We're more than the cash flow statement. What we are is anything that is numeric and quantifiable, we should be tracking and recording it.
Absolutely.
So I liked how you were describing here these 6 areas, and I just wanted to recap these just in case anyone was taking notes. You mentioned 6 items, and I'm going to do it in a little different order because I just want to make a point. One of the ones you mentioned was CRM, and I think from an accounting perspective, we sometimes don't recognize our value within the CRM, but there is the sales funnel for whatever organization we have as a client. And as they in their CRM are bringing in things, they're spending money, and we want to be able to attribute an ROI to it. We want to be able to say that as they're bringing into their sales funnel potential new customers and they're moving down the sales funnel, we're able to determine what was the cost per acquisition. We're able to do what's the cost per sale. We can do then the lifetime value of that customer. We can determine a number of things that the client ultimately should know. And a lot of this data resides not in the software for accounting, it's in the CRM. How many customers do they have? What did the average customer pay? These things, they kind of commingle and cross over into the accounting, but it's within the CRM that there's this additional data that we need to be tapping into.
Absolutely.
You talked about
just on that too, just to extend that. I mean, for us, we tried to do a lot of CRM in the accounting system, and we added custom fields and all those things that we could until actually I brought a new team member in around 15 years ago and said, what do we do? We need a CRM system. We were trying to run events for clients and run campaigns, knowing what number of our clients and what number of our available services are they using, what's the average customer revenue, who hasn't interacted with us over X period of time. All these things are answerable in the CRM. And when you think of small businesses, what's one of the things that keeps us up at night? And a part of it is the fear that we're not delivering on our promise to our customer. And when we've got a team, how do we know if Fred got back to Mary about that proposal, about that thing that we were going to do for them? What if Fred is actually away tomorrow or off sick for a week? It's usually kept in this silo being an email inbox. So CRM actually gives us this holistic view of the business, which is absolutely vital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, when you couple that with your second item that you brought up, which was the document management, I think it's that lifelong aspiration to go paperless. And at the same time, you're tying to all the transactions, the documents, and really with a lot of what's going on with AI, merely the document being brought into the system can now be read by the system and entered by the system. And we're just managing and finessing how it was actually recorded. So the document management system is very, very important. The analytics, I can't say enough about these. The more we can as an accounting profession now take the numbers we're getting and push them forward, go forward thinking and do budgets and forecasts and do trends analysis. All of that analytic information then gives us relevance to our customers so that they as clients of ours see the value we're bringing to them to be making more intelligent business decisions. So that's really, that analytical technology is very, very important. And as it integrates with the accounting software, the more empowered we are to go to our clients with that additional information. The payroll and HR information, very, very good there. I agree with you. There is kind of an integration that goes on. And if you can kind of tie that into the services and platforms that you're either using or helping your clients recognize, that's important.
Just on that too, just adding to the payroll and HR, there's sort of this emerging need and demand for, and there's providers out there doing this, of now that we've got more applications, more apps, more connections, how do we manage those? How do we manage those within a team? What if someone leaves? How do we actually remove them from all the applications that we utilize with our clients? There's there's software solutions that are actually managing team management.
Yes.
As well, that would probably fit into that category.
Yeah, and with that, you might actually tie in project management. There's the workflow allocations that are going on there, and then what you're doing is you're managing their rights or permissions within that as to what they can see and access. So you're spot on there. The print or point to sell and e-commerce, you're so right. That's where a lot of the transactions are happening. That's where a lot of the monies are coming from, and so they're coming out of those systems into the accounting software. And if we've got a good inventory system aligned with that, we've got so much more data that we can be looking at. I love how you brought those 6 elements in, and I think it helps our listeners understand, okay, when I'm looking at working with my clients, where in these 6 areas are we lacking? Where in these 6 areas could I find a better technology? When I go to an accounting conference, I'm going to look for a solution that might fill that void. I'm going to come back from the conference, be the hero, share with them something that fills that gap. And now I'm going to be not the administrator of it, but I'm going to be the person that's going to integrate it with everything so that it actually helps them better run their business. And see, now I, again, as an accounting professional, am remaining relevant to the success of my customers. That, I think, is the big picture that we're trying to describe here as to how technology is relevant to the accounting profession.
Absolutely. And just in visualizing it, if you visualize it, that the hub of the wheel is still for accountants is accounting. It still is the accounting technology piece, the general ledger and everything that sits around that. But these are the critical spokes that actually keeps the wheel round and rolling.
Yes, so well said.
I just wanted to touch on that too. Just one thing.
Go ahead.
Maybe if you're on the call today, you're feeling, well, hang on, how do I do this? I suppose you've probably got 3 choices, and I call it build, buddy, or buy. You can build this from scratch in your firm, and there is massive, massive latent potential and demand out there. When I talk to small businesses and I ask them questions around, would you like these sorts of services from your accounting professional? The answer is a resounding yes. I trust them already. I want more. I want more connection. I want more relevance. It'll require the firm's owners and operators and accountants to be agile. Agility, as my good friend Doug Sleater says, agility trumps ability. And so being agile, being aware, being awake, and conscious as to what's needed. So you can build this out, and that's a long-term play. It's going to take a lot of effort and energy to do it, but boy, is it worth it if you've got an inkling to want to do that. The second option is buddy up with someone. You don't have to do all this. Buddy up with someone who's already doing it. Create some strategic partnerships, alliances with those that specialize in these specific areas. For us, for example, we don't do all of these spoke pieces. Inventory management, we've buddied up with someone who we like, know, and trust that's proficient in that area. So we have the initial conversations and assessment with the clients. We identify the opportunity. We help scope the need, and maybe look at the request for proposal document if we go that far. But then we get our aligned partner involved, but then we're there making sure that connection to accounting actually occurs correctly. So build, buddy, or buy. There's people out there running these consulting businesses that perhaps are looking to say, well, how do I scale this? And what if a firm actually rolled them up into your firm, and gave them some resources, gave them some infrastructure, and perhaps a client base as well that you can do something together with. So that's build, buddy, or buy. You don't have to go it alone, but you've got to choose one of those options.
Build, buddy, or buy. Good. Here's what I'd like to do real quickly, Clayton. I'm going to just do a quick sponsor plug here. With the sponsors in mind, I just want to recognize that Universal Accounting Center is sponsoring today's podcast. And for this, we invite you to get a free copy of 2 books that all accounting professionals should use and actually reference in their services that they're providing to their clients. It allows you to offer trusted strategic services that are of nice value add to your business. These books happen to be on things that are relevant to not only running your company successfully, but obviously helping your clients as well. The first being In the Black. In the Black, 9 Principles to Make Your Business Profitable. It's an ebook that every accounting professional should have. It speaks of the short-term, mid-term, and long-term things that you need to be working on in your company to ensure that profit is a priority. The second book happens to be Red to Black in 30 Days. It's a small business accountant's guide to quick turnarounds. This book is specifically a how-to guide to help you as an accounting professional help with the most needed service within any firm, and that's cash flow management within your clients. These clients are obviously struggling oftentimes with the cash flow situations that they have, and this is the how-to guide to ensure that you're actually able to engage with them beyond the accounting services that you traditionally offer to then become much more involved in the day-to-day operations and assist them where it matters perhaps most, their cash flow management. So go to the descriptions section of this podcast and find there the information you need to get a copy of each book, In the Black and Red to Black. Now, with that in mind, I just want to just quickly ask you a few quick questions here, Clayton. With regards to your business and this discussion we've had, what final thoughts would you want to share as we kind of wrap this up?
Yeah, look, I suppose I just want to share and help people to gain some confidence, believe in yourself, but also pay attention to what the market and what the customer base needs. Understand that, find a need and fill it. It's not just about doing exactly what we're totally passionate about. Look, when you're looking for purpose, it's about sort of that, that intersection of those 3 sort of circles where you've got something that you're skilled at, you've got an interest in it, so you do have some perhaps passion around it, but it's also needed. Mm-hmm. Where those 3 align, I think Jack Welch talked about it. Finding your purpose is that intersection. So focus on that. You can do it. Just be brave, be bold, and just focus on that need of the customer and client that you're looking to serve.
Excellent. Good recap. I like that. I think at the end of the day, it just matters, are we passionate about it? Can we provide a needed service that the client wants? And can we be compelling enough to show why they should pay for it? So very, very good. What I'd like to do is kind of recap quickly what I have heard today, because I think a lot of the things that we shared resonate to the accounting professional. And as you're listening, I think that you'll agree, these are the things that really we need to consider as an accounting profession. First, there was an excellent discussion that Clayton shared here regarding the 6 things that as an accounting profession we need to be sensitive to and aware of as we work with our clients to ensure that they have the technologies in place to properly run their business. The second thing is to realize that we have a role in helping them utilize these technologies effectively and making sure that they integrate well, and more importantly, provide us the information we need to be that trusted strategic advisor to ensure that we're providing value to our clients. That'll help with the client retention as well as the client relationships that we have, and ultimately will result in referrals as we provide quality services. The aim here to obviously be the premier accounting firm in your area. Now, with all that in mind, I do want to encourage all of you to listen to our other episodes as well as subscribe to this podcast and see what it is you can do to work on your business and ensure that you're remaining not only relevant, but in fact the premier accounting firm in your area. I also invite you to look for additional information and how you can apply these principles in your company by contacting Universal Accounting School. You can go to universalaccountingschool.com for more information or call 801-265-3777. So Clayton, with that in mind, do you have any final things that you'd like to just end on?
Look, that's been an absolute pleasure to be on the show with you, Roger. I hope it made a difference to others. It's just one day at a time, and believe and go out there and achieve whatever it is that you want to actually achieve out of life.
I agree. No, I appreciate having you on the show. I think everyone did get something from this. I think it was a beneficial episode for us to share. And I always want to end by saying, if it's about accounting, it is universal. So with that, everybody take care. Have a great day. And thanks for your time.